Welcome back. Let's just take you through all the top stories and headlines in our segment Worldview. A young Iranian protester faces execution today. Donald Trump warned of very strong action if Iran executes protesters. Reports suggest more than 2,400 people have been killed ever since protests erupted in Iran on the 28th of last month. In a tragic incident, a construction crane fell on a passenger train in northeastern Thailand today, killing at least 22 people. The death toll is expected to rise. An Iranian protester, Erfan Soltani, is reportedly facing execution in Iran today after he was tried, convicted and sentenced following his arrest last week. The 26-year-old was arrested at the peak of the protests before the internet blackout. Soltani is one of the many thousands of protesters arrested last week. Donald Trump, the U.S. president, has warned Iran against executing protesters, saying the U.S. would take quote-unquote strong action if the regime hangs detained Iranians. In a post on X, the U.S. State Department said that Iranian authorities had arrested more than 10,600 Iranians.
And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
According to reports, at least 2,400 protesters have been killed in Iran since the anti-government demonstrations began in late December. U.S. tensions are spiraling as well in Iran as nationwide protests intensify. Donald Trump, the U.S. president, has openly backed Iranian protesters, urging them to stay on the streets and even take over institutions, claiming help is on the way. Over 2,000 people, let that sink in, have been killed, including security personnel, in the ongoing protests in the country, according to Iranian officials. Meanwhile, Iran has accused the U.S. president of encouraging political destabilization, inciting violence in the country. Iran's foreign minister has warned the country is ready for any option that the U.S. may choose. Exiled Crown Prince has added fuel to the unrest, saying the world is responding to Iran's voice and appealing to the military to join the movement, raising fears of perhaps a deeper crisis ahead.
ما برای هر عملی آمادگی داریم. اگه میخوان که برخورد نظامی رو که یک بار امتحان کردند و نتیجه‌ای نگرفتند، یک بار دیگه امتحان بکنن، ما آماده ایم. حتی از جنگ قبلی آماده تریم. هم به لحاظ کیفیت، هم به لحاظ کمیت. اگر میخوان که گزینه‌های دیگر امتحان بکنن، برای اونها هم آمادگی داریم. هر گزینه‌ای که اونها امتحان بکنن، ما آمادگی داریم.
Iran is once again on the edge. Fresh protests are flaring across the country amid reports of rising death toll and mass detentions. And now the regime says it will execute a protester, triggering international alarm. Like you know, U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of very strong action if Iran carries out the hanging. While Tehran insists the unrest is being driven by foreign powers, the big question this afternoon is the crackdown restoring control or revealing panic at the top. Joining me now is Yasmin Maher, Iranian scholar. Yasmin, thank you for joining me on Breaking Ground this afternoon. What's the most important shift you're seeing, Yasmin, in Iran's protests right now in terms of scale, geography, leadership, or demands?
This is definitely the largest protest we have seen, I would say, probably since 1979. The spread is most provinces. The protesters were very angry. I think there were infiltrators from other countries, but that does not mean tens of thousands were very angry on the streets of most places.
Yasmin, what makes this wave different from past uprisings? I've asked every expert, every analyst this question because I want to understand what is so different about this uprising and what then, Yasmin, could determine whether it sustains or it fizzles.
The economic situation is terrible. It started with the economic demands, but the economic demands then also reminded people that they have political arguments against dictatorship, against lack of levels of personal freedom. So we are seeing an eruption of the young population against the regime. It is different in that it's much more in smaller towns, in larger towns, everywhere. The life, woman, freedom movement was more restrained to urban city areas. But the anger is more as well.
Now, there are reports of major casualties, of course. We're seeing huge numbers coming out from different agencies and, of course, mass arrests. Is the regime then regaining control, or is this an indication of them losing control, Yasmin?
At the moment, I think the level of killings, the level of imprisonment means they have kept control. The question is, how long can you keep such a control? Because the protesters will probably come back. There will be funerals for people who have been killed, even if the government doesn't release the bodies. And these will escalate into more and more protests.
Also, let's talk about the execution threat. Now, if Tehran goes ahead with it, Yasmin, hanging a protester in this case, what message is it trying to send to protesters, to insiders, and to the wider public, and perhaps to Donald Trump as well?
Well, I think it is trying to show its strengths. It is accusing everyone who was on the demonstrators or those who actually did rioting to be foreign agents. As I said, there were some, but that's not true. And there were also a lot of angry Iranians. The message is to fear to the Iranian people and telling Donald Trump, we don't care. I think we should emphasize Trump is using a lot of this as part of negotiation as well as threats.
So do executions then actually deter, or can they backfire and widen this movement?
It can backfire. Because obviously there are a lot of prisoners. Relatives of those prisoners will be very scared that their relative will be the next one to be executed. So it might actually backfire. But in the immediate, if you like, for today, for tomorrow, it will increase the sense of fear that ordinary Iranians feel after the events of Friday, Saturday.
Yasmin, very quickly, I have two more questions for you. In crackdowns like this, how does the regime use courts, confessions, and propaganda to justify extreme punishment?
Well, the foreign enemy exists, so we can't deny there isn't plots against it. So it tries to put the blame mainly on the foreign enemy. It also tries to consolidate its own forces. And it does not rely at this stage on the army, but on religious militia, Basij, and Revolutionary Guards. So it's quite